Hello, and thank you for joining us to discuss the Court of Honor presentation. My name is Mackenzie Lalka, and I serve AKSI as the Associate Director of Education. I will be your webcast producer. Before we dive into the content, I would like to review the web-based features available to you. This webinar will be advanced remotely. By the bottom of your screen, there are multiple application widgets you can use throughout the program. If you're accessing the webinar via a mobile device, you may need to scroll down or over on your screen to access the widgets. Additionally, each window on your screen can be resized and moved to fit your individual learning needs. A copy of the slideshow and other additional materials are available in the green Resource List widget. If you have any technical difficulty, please click on the Help widget with the question mark icon. If you have a question throughout the program, you can launch the Q&A widget to submit your question. All questions will be answered after the program via email. Court of Honor is an opportunity for pledges to reflect on their experience in the Bridge to Brotherhood pledge process and continue to grow in Alpha Kappa Psi. We will review the requirements of the presentation, discuss logistics of the event, and explore ways to enhance the ritual for optimal reflection. For our program today, Kimberly Lewis will present. Kimberly Lewis graduated from the University of South Florida with a bachelor's degree in marketing and from Nova Southeastern University with a master's degree in entrepreneurship. She pledged the Xi Omega chapter in the spring of 2008. She has served as MOR for 2 years with the Omega Rho chapter, as the Rituals Coordinator for the Southeast section, as the Regional Manager of Rituals for the Atlantic Gulf Coast region and the Southern Bluegrass region, and currently serves as the Section Director for the Central Florida section. She is also currently the co-lead for the Fraternity Ritual team and serves on the Ritual Task Force. Professionally, she's an elementary teacher aspiring to climb the ladder in the field of education. Her hobbies include running long distance and cooking.
Thanks, Mackenzie. Let's start off by talking about why we're here. Every chapter hosts Court of Honor, and every member goes through the ritual. It's the final part of the pledge process before initiation, so it carries a great deal of weight in not only setting the stage for membership, but wrapping up the pledge's experience in the pledge program. To help our chapter succeed and have a successful Court of Honor, it's important to plan ahead and ensure everyone understands its purpose and enters the ritual with the right mindset. In the Bridge to Brotherhood program, Court of Honor is a group presentation where pledges will be able to reflect on their experience in the pledge process, identify areas of growth, and anticipate what they would like to do in membership. It also addresses a different interview style that is becoming more prevalent in the corporate world. As I'm sure many of you have experienced in previous group projects, groups with too many people can be difficult to manage and ensure that everyone is involved in the process. Groups for this presentation should be kept small, roughly between 3 to 5 pledges. Keeping the group small will allow everyone to remain involved and provide the pledges an opportunity to improve not only their public speaking skills, but also their teamwork skills. The groups will be assigned during Module 3 to give the pledge class a little more than half of the pledge process to work together to determine how they want to organize and deliver the presentation. This also gives the fraternity educators enough time to see who naturally gravitates towards one another. Fraternity educators can choose to create the groups based on any process, but consider using it in a relationship-building exercise. While the presentation is reflective in nature, let's talk more about the requirements of the presentation. We want to hear about both the individual and group perspective, so there are items each pledge will need to address during the presentation, as well as items each group will need to cover. Each pledge needs to address these questions. What did you learn in the process? What did you learn from your informational interview? What did you include on your personal development plan to continue focusing on in membership? How will you contribute to membership? Each group will also need to answer these questions. What challenges did you face in the process? How will you utilize the knowledge you have learned? How did you grow personally and professionally as a group? Each group will have a maximum of 15 minutes to present before transitioning to a question and answer session led by the brothers on the panel, which can be up to another 15 minutes. You'll notice there really aren't a lot of guidelines for the presentation, and that is intentional. We want the pledges to be creative and showcase their personalities and abilities. As long as they address each of the required portions, students have a lot of freedom in how they want to complete their final presentation. Some members of your pledge class might be very artistic and feel inclined to make a video, whereas some want to stick to a simple PowerPoint. Others may want to write and enact a skit recreating some of their moments in the process. The limits are endless. Not only does this allow pledges to stretch their capabilities, but it will also make it more exciting and engaging for the brothers watching. While we do want to encourage creative and innovative thinking, keep in mind that we are a professional business fraternity. It may sound fun to write a rap, but if you include profanity, then it crosses the line to unprofessional. Our pledges have learned about our core values, and they should not produce or share anything that would be deemed inappropriate. Unless the chapter has selected the Court of Honor work session as an elective, there is no specific time during the education module to work on the presentation. The majority of the presentation must be developed on the pledge's own time. This is why it is particularly important for chapters not to overload the pledge class calendar with electives and keep the week before Court of Honor clear of additional activities, if possible, to allow the pledges time to finalize their presentations. We know that some pledges may not have participated in group projects yet or identified the best way to manage their time, so each group will determine a project lead. The project lead is responsible for keeping everyone on track. This doesn't mean the project lead will complete the presentation on behalf of the group, but they should frequently touch base with the fraternity educator to let he or she know how the project is going. If a member of the group is noticing that a pledge is not doing their share, they should speak to the fraternity educator to address the concerns. Now, let's iron out the logistics. The Master of Rituals still needs to reserve the rooms and plan the day's schedule. Once the chapter has determined a setup that works for them and complies with fraternity policy, these logistics become a formality that doesn't need to be changed each semester. Chapters should utilize a before and after room for the pledges and bring in the groups according to a predetermined schedule of which the pledges should be aware. Pledges will then deliver their presentation within the 15-minute time frame. After the pledges complete their presentation, brothers on a panel will ask follow-up questions. The brothers on each panel should already be selected, and there should be 2 to 3 brothers per panel. When they ask follow-up questions, they can be either to the group or to an individual pledge regarding their process. This is the time for brothers to ask about the pledge's informational interview or use any of the questions from the midterm interview question bank. The goal is not to rehash the midterm interview, but bring closure to the pledge's experience and cause them to reflect on their growth in the process. While only questions on the midterm interview question bank may be asked, it is acceptable to ask a follow-up question based off something a pledge said in their presentation if you want further clarification or elaboration. For example, if they said one activity was their favorite but didn't really explain why, it's okay to ask them to explain further. According to board policy, rituals must be conducted in an 8-hour window and must start and end at a reasonable hour. For example, starting at 6 a.m. and concluding at 2 p.m. or beginning at 6 p.m. and concluding at 2 a.m. are violations of the policy. Some of you may be a little confused, as the ritual book does suggest completing the ritual in 3 hours. This is merely a suggestion, as this is not always possible, especially in larger chapters. Completing the ritual in 8 hours, however, is part of board policy and must be followed. If you find your chapter is often short on time, consider holding 2 to 3 simultaneous presentations in multiple rooms. Always remember, however, the starting number of hours should be reduced by about 90 minutes if the chapter plans to conduct initiations along with Court of Honor in one day. Also keep in mind, if your ritual will extend over a lunch or dinner period, you need to make time available to either bring in food or allow members and pledges to get their own. So, make sure to schedule a meal for everyone and include time for panelists to take breaks. Adding this time into the schedule will allow the event to stay on track. Each person's time is valuable, whether alumnus, student, brother, or pledge. Considering all of these things, you will want to ensure you have rooms reserved well in advance, as well as any technology you may need, like a projector or audio capabilities, depending on how the pledges choose to deliver their presentation. Universities will have different policies and processes to reserve rooms, so get that taken care of as soon as possible. You don't want to be stuck without a room the day before ritual, or all the other preparation will go to waste. Again, depending on the size of your chapter and the size of your pledge class, you will need at least one room that can hold everyone for initiation, and you may need additional rooms for the presentations to keep to an efficient schedule. The most crucial aspect of Court of Honor isn't in the details of the event, but in the mindset of those attending. You can have every detail perfectly planned, but the moment a brother acts out during the ritual, questions the purpose of the event, or simply looks like they have no interest in being there, the whole event can come crashing down. While they may not realize it, the actions of the Brotherhood, no matter how small, have a direct impact on the soon-to-be initiated brothers. If a pledge walks in for the interview and sees members on their phones or whispering to one another, what are they going to think? They certainly aren't going to take the event seriously. The same goes for the opposite extreme. If the brothers are too strict and instill a sense of fear to the point there are tears, why would anyone want to continue in an organization that supports that kind of environment? Your actions will decide what lasting memory the pledges walk away with, and this moment sets up their expectation for the rest of the membership experience. So to prepare the Brotherhood, you must set the stage and remind them why we do this. To help the pledges see all they have accomplished, recognize their growth, and mentally prepare them for the oath of initiation. They should be excited to become a new member at the completion of Court of Honor. Part of preparing the Brotherhood is helping them understand how they can be involved in the ritual. The most important role brothers can serve is as a panelist to provide follow-up questions and feedback to the pledges after their presentations. To get the most brothers involved, consider utilizing multiple presentation rooms and/or switching the panels between the presentation groups. If you have a large chapter, not everyone may be able to sit on a panel, but that doesn't mean their presence isn't necessary. Brothers who aren't serving on a panel should still attend and watch the presentations to provide support for the pledge class who will soon join them in membership. They have spent the last 5 to 8 weeks learning about our organization and developing themselves, so we owe it to them to be present and focused on what they have to share about their experience. While the Court of Honor presentation should be a fun and positive experience, the ritual doesn't come without risk. Lights should always be completely on. Think about it. You're not going to walk into Google for a job interview in a dimly lit or pitch black room, are you? The only time lights can be adjusted is during the more ceremonial portions of the initiation ritual, and they should still never be completely off. This should not be a final stress test. You should not call people out. This is not a chance to bring up some long-standing issue a brother has with their particular pledge. At this point in time, there should be no questions about a pledge's prospective membership. Expanding on that, it is not a time for brothers to have fun by taking things out on pledges. By Court of Honor, these pledges should have demonstrated they will be a good brother. If the Brotherhood has any doubts about a pledge at this point, the chapter has failed in its duty to examine the character of all men and women who seek admittance to the fraternity. A pledge should only be removed from the program after Court of Honor in extreme circumstances. That means that some new, unknown piece of information is discovered that day that calls into question the pledge's honor and integrity. Ensure that the entire Brotherhood understands this ahead of time so there are no surprises when it comes time to discuss and vote. Chapters will often invite alumni members or brothers from other chapters to attend, and they will need to be prepared as well, particularly if they aren't familiar with Bridge to Brotherhood. While they are more than welcome to attend, and chapters may allow alumni brothers to serve as panelists if they are adequately prepared, remind them that they are there as a guest of the chapter. Should they act unfavorably, you have every right to ask them to leave. This goes for alumni and members of the chapter. At any point, the chapter has the right to ask someone to leave if they are being disruptive. To avoid this, speak with everyone ahead of time and set the ground rules. If they are serving as a justice, ensure they meet with the Master of Rituals prior to the ceremony and understand their role. It will take everyone's cooperation and understanding to create the right atmosphere, but it is especially important to maintain the correct mindset so hazing doesn't occur. Hazing has no place in any part of the pledge process or the fraternity, and especially not on this day of final reflection. Remember, the vow of silence is considered hazing and is not permitted. To keep order in before and after rooms, The ritual team can ask that both rooms remain in a library-like environment, allowing pledges to study and or reflect on his or her experience. The use of blindfolds or even asking pledges to close their eyes is not permitted. As new members of the fraternity, they should enter into this relationship with AK Psi with their eyes wide open, both figuratively and literally. Likewise, ensure no pre-ritualistic activities occur with the pledges. Our ceremonies are dignified events and should not be tarnished by mischief or stunt. These activities will constitute a violation of the hazing policy established by the Board of Directors. In addition, remind brothers to turn off and stow away cell phones, laptops, iPads, or any other device that would distract him or her from paying full attention to the ceremony. If we ask our pledges to be respectful of this day, we should expect no less from our brothers. If the chapter has a hazing issue, work with the RMT or the JC to eradicate those issues. This directive must begin with the chapter president and flow through the master of rituals in the selection of panelists, training of interviewers, and discussing the proper conduct of the ritual, including ending the practice of allowing questions from the gallery during the event. Always remember that members of your RMT are there for support. Lastly, and depending on the location of the chapter, someone from the Judiciary Committee could be asked to present to the chapter to warn them of the dangers of asking inappropriate questions or otherwise conducting the ritual outside the boundaries of fraternal policy. If you ever have to ask yourself, could this be considered wrong, hazing, or possibly embarrassing, you have an issue. Your intuition has prompted you to raise the question in the first place, so the answer is always yes. Stop the ritual, reflect on what needs to change, and then proceed. As an officer, you are one of the primary caretakers of your chapter's charter. Will others recall that you transferred it untarnished to the next generation of brothers? Before we wrap up, let's recap a few key points from our presentation. The Court of Honor presentation is a group project which allows the pledge class to reflect on their experience and growth in the pledge program, as well as what they are looking forward to in membership. Pledges can be creative in what and how they want to share their experience with the chapter, but each individual will need to address certain points, and the same for each group. During the ritual, brothers will serve on a panel to ask follow-up questions, but the remainder of the Brotherhood will be there for support to listen to and learn about the pledge class before welcoming them into the chapter. Ensuring the entire Brotherhood understands the purpose of the event and comes with the right mindset is crucial to having a successful Court of Honor.
Thank you, Kim, for walking us through the logistics of such an important event. I want to highlight the key skills our viewers were exposed to today. By serving on a panel, members will gain experience with organization, oral communication, and relationship building skills. By listening to presentation, members will gain experience with listening and comprehension. As stated earlier, you can launch the Q&A widget from the menu dock to submit your questions, which we will respond to via email. For any follow-up questions or conversation about the program, please contact education@aksi.org. I'd like to thank Kim for her insight and expertise, and thank you again for joining.